In 2024, three major AAA titles alone lost roughly $1.2 billion. Three games. And that's billion with a B so big, it could only be your mother. Whoa. And I know what you're thinking. Is gaming in trouble? Well, yes and no. And I'm about to tell you why I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is primed to save gaming as we know it. So buckle up for another of my greatest arguments ever. The Nintendo Switch 2 has officially been announced, and I, like many of you, am both excited and naturally have a ton of questions. Questions like the ones you had when you were growing up and you had that one uncle who never had a job, but drove around a Cadillac and had a lot of cash on him, and every once in a while you'd catch him talking about beating kneecaps with baseball bats. We had uncles like that, right? We all had uncles, right? Right? But unlike those charming, ubiquitous childhood questions, I think we're all in for a grand surprise when it comes to the Switch 2, and I'm extremely bullish. Knock it off on this platform and what it has to offer to the gaming space over the next 7 or more years. And why am I so bullish? I said knock it off. Well, buckle up because we're about to dive deep. And what I propose as the grand argument for why the Switch 2 could sell 10 million units or more within its first year. And to get started with this argument, we first have to level set with the state of gaming in 2025. And while there are a few key themes I want to emphasize, I think I could bracket them all under the topic, why AAA gaming is failing. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, a few minutes and cattle calls ago now, 2024 saw some major losses and failures when it comes to the AAA gaming space, and it's not like these games are terrible or unplayable, although I would say Skull and Bones is indeed both of those, but rather that the AAA gaming space for the most part seems to be stuck in a self-fulfilling prophecy. One, they promise a huge 50+ hour game with graphics that could slap your grandmother out of a coma and spend more cash than the LA Dodgers yearly roster just trying to make Spider-Man spandex look better than the ones your mom was wearing last night. Hey. And two, because of the high cost, naturally these publishers want to mitigate as much risk as possible, so they place their bets on surefire proven game designs and monetization models. And three, release a competent, fun, but relatively identical game as they did the previous year, leading to a fatigue on the series, the underlying game design and mechanics, and then wonder why they're not raking it in and having to close down shop. I call this the Ubisoftification of the gaming world. They're a great example, and any day now, they may be headed down the gutter. They saw success with a few types of approaches to game design throughout the 2000s, and the next thing you know, every single IP of theirs had an almost identical DNA. Open world, check. Microtransactions for meaningless aesthetics, check. Icons and towers on your map to help you expand your purview, check, and so on and so on. And for example, as an anecdotal experience, let's talk about Far Cry. I haven't played Far Cry ever until I played Far Cry 5, and honestly, for a first-time experience, I thought it was a blast. But then I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla and Far Cry 6, and I just didn't have the time or desire to do it all. And that's what happens when a company says, let's make a big, expensive game, but mitigate risk as much as possible, and simultaneously not give the gamer enough time to miss that type of game. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just ask my wife. I haven't seen her in years, and she loves me. So what's the answer? How do you break this vicious spandex glorious cycle? Well, for one, not focusing on the highest of high-end graphics, and two, focusing on fun and innovative gameplay design over pimping out the same cow with a new coat of paint. I mean, sooner or later, the milk is going to go rancid. Also, maybe every game doesn't have to be 100+ hours long. You know, just a thought, right? Like, I get it. I'm an adult. I don't have time to play them all, and kids have more time, but hey, kids don't need to be spending 100 hours plus on a new title every few months either. And believe it or not, most parents don't want that for them. And parents, they're the ones that have the money. Don't believe me? Again, just ask your mom. In fact, look at Xbox and PlayStation. PlayStation wanted to get in on that milk money train in terms of free-to-play games with loads of monetization. Formulas that have seen success since the rise of Fortnite and Call of Duty Warzone and the likes, but not one of those games have panned out. They've canceled numerous of them, and the big games that they have released, even the critical acclaim, they've had to port to the PC. They're not at a place anymore where they can keep a game completely exclusive. They need to seek more consumer revenue streams, and in one sense, sure, that's a positive for gamers who are locked in on a specific platform, But on the other hand, the problem that's making such non-exclusive games a possibility, that being extremely expensive games, isn't great for the industry in the long run either. Case in point, let's talk about Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, there are reports that some industry analysts think they could charge $100 for it, and while that game may indeed seem worth it in the eyes of the gamer and priced appropriately considering the cost and quality involved, what happens afterwards is a ton of similar AAA publishers will be saying, yeah, our game is worth $100 too. Because realistically, it does cost so much and probably should be priced at that point thanks to that cost. And then what happens? Well, in a world full of inflation, geopolitical uncertainty, and various other economic concerns, gaming, and at least this type of AAA gaming, could be in trouble. But what needs to happen? And how does the Switch 2 play a part? Well, now let's take everything I just said and compare and contrast it with the Nintendo Switch. First, let's talk about scale and size. There are about 7 first-party exclusive Switch games on average that take about 60-70 hours to complete the main story. And that's all of the Xenoblade Chronicles, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdoms, and Animal Crossing, which I really don't want to count given the nature of that type of game. Most of the games flow between the 20 to 40 hour space with a median average of about 30 hours to complete. I'm talking about your mainline Mario games, your Donkey Kong, your Pokemons, and so on. Now, let's take a step further and talk about the cost. Well, let's look at a game like Breath of the Wild, a game that sold 32.62 million copies, and a game that, if you want to be a full-on completion about, will take you roughly 190 hours to do so according to how long to beat. That game sold a lot, and it seems like there's a lot to do, and more so, I'd go as far as to say it was one of the most innovative and important games to come out in the last decade. Its influence was felt instantly as every major publisher tried to create a similar experience. But what about the cost? Well, best estimates from outlets such as Forbes are that it cost around $120 million to develop. And for comparison purposes, let's take a look at the best exclusive and seller in the PS5, Spider-Man 2, which cost roughly $300 million according to IGN, meaning it had to sell about 7.2 million copies just to break even, and it just got over that mark at 11 million, give or take a few thousand, which, listen, I loved Spider-Man 1 on the PS4, and Spider-Man 2 is primarily built on the same foundation. The difference, content and new graphics, and you could bet your bottom dollar that's where much of the effort went for that title. So what's my point here? Well, my point is that a console like the PS5 has about, right now, 4 first-party games that have sold over 1 million copies, but have cost a heck of a lot more to make. And the Nintendo Switch has 72 games that have sold over 1 million copies each, all while reaching consistent positive acclaim. So how does Nintendo do it? How do they pump out so many games to such good reviews consistently? The answer is scope and focus, and the evidence is a unique and brilliant approach to game design. At the heart of Nintendo's philosophy is the question, how do we provide an innovative, fun way to play? It's not just baked into their video games, but their consoles themselves. I've talked about this countless times before on the channel, but they're always looking on how they could take proven and affordable technology and use it in innovative new ways. From accelerometers and phones and PDAs and placing them in the DS and Wii to efficient yet proven systems on a chip with the Switch. And this innovation of the hardware translates to the game design itself. There's a synergistic relationship between the two. And this is important because I truly believe if Nintendo did put their games on other platforms, sure, we might have Mario in 4K, but would the games be so innovative? I bet not. And that's because Nintendo doesn't care about the high fidelity race, and frankly, that's why they're doing so well. They make sure the bulk of their effort is on game design because gameplay, my friends, is king. Everyone else is chasing spectacle, and Nintendo's focus is innovating on why we're here in the first place. Gameplay. And while some of those games manage to look fantastic, I'm talking about you Monolith Sophians or wizards with the Switch, and I really hope Nintendo lasses you into work on the next mainline Pokemon game. We mostly don't walk away from their games though going, oh my gosh, it looks so good, because frankly, that's not that impressive anymore. Many games look great. We're hitting diminishing returns. We walk away from Nintendo's games going, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And that, my friends, is part of the reason why I'm so bullish on the Switch 2. Because in a world where everything looks as realistic as possible and plays pretty similar, the developer who makes the games play different, well, they're the ones that are going to continue to stand out, especially since affordability comes along with that innovative gameplay. More so, you actually have a reason to buy the system since, well, it's the only place to play their games, and Nintendo is in no position to change that anytime soon. Again, they've sold 72 titles that have sold over 1 million copies each, 72. In fact, Nintendo's president was recently quoted as saying that exclusive games continue to be critical for the business, so they're not changing anytime soon. But speaking of innovation, I want to hit on some additional reasons why I think the Switch 2 will be even more impressive than what we're expecting. And that goes back to the comment I made earlier about using proven and now affordable technology in new and innovative ways. And that's NVIDIA's AI-based DLSS technology. With the release of the 5000 line of GPUs, NVIDIA is debuting its 4th generation of DLSS technology at this point, and it's pretty impressive. I say this as someone who currently plays on a 5080 rig. But since we've had 4 generations of this technology, that also means Nintendo very well seems to be implementing a version of it on their newest system. But why is that important? In simple language, because that's how I tend to understand things best, DLSS lets a hardware stack punch way above its weight. And while the Switch 2 from raw power standards is estimated between somewhere of the PS4 and an Xbox Series S, with the help of DLSS-based tech, the Switch 2 can bring 4K graphics and additional performance gains in a sleek, energy-efficient form factor that won't break your bank, like the PS5 Pro, which I have. Why do I have it? I have a problem. I have a sickness. In fact, a patent published in early January seems to indicate Nintendo will be using this type of technology exactly. And one of the cool use cases called out talks about how it will impact the size of the game itself. For example, if a game with 4K assets would be around 60 gigabytes of data, Nintendo wants to utilize this technology to 4x upscale its 1080 native assets real-time so that the game size overall would be around 20 gigabytes. And why is this a win for gamers? Well, who here has come home from the store with a brand new PS5 or Xbox game and then had to wait as 100 gigabytes of additional data was downloaded to your system, making the discs essentially useless digital keys? With Nintendo's approach, we could expect Switch 2 games to load instantly without any additional downloads, and also, they're throwing a bone to all of us gamers out here who still prefer to get their games physically. It really helps maintain value in a Switch game versus other systems games as well. To me, in many ways, this is a pro gamer move. But DLSS will benefit more than Nintendo's first-party IPs. Yes, Mario's mustache in glorious 4K will be a sight to behold, but with the optimization benefits of DLSS, we can easily bet that the Nintendo Switch 2 will not only launch with a great lineup of third-party games, but we can easily expect to see it get continuous support throughout its lifecycle. Why? Well, as we've already noted, thanks to the increase in cost around the spectacle theater of game development in AAA Gaming, developers are constantly looking for new platforms to generate new revenue streams on new and old-ish titles. And again, this is why Microsoft is becoming a publishing house and why Sony is even porting its games to PC. And thanks to the insane software sales numbers we've already seen on the current Switch, upwards of 1 billion units of software, we can guarantee developers who couldn't port their games on the Switch 1 see a potential gold mine with the Switch 2. Again, thanks to the modest increase in raw power and the promised DLSS capabilities, porting games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth and Metal Gear Solid Delta, the Capcom Resident Evil Remake, and even more recent releases, and even Microsoft titles like the Master Chief Collection, Halo Infinite, and Gears of War can be expected reasonably to be seen at some point on the Switch 2. And while third-party support is critical for the success of a Nintendo platform, the real ringer at the end of the day for Nintendo will be their first-party games. We already know a new Mario Kart is on the way, and every other single first-party powerhouse can be expected to be seen. Again, thanks to Nintendo's strategy, which helps keeps costs down and innovation up, they are in no pressure to have to bring their titles anywhere else to recoup costs. This means if you want to play a Nintendo game, you need a Switch too. Maybe you'll also need a PS5 or a PC, since either one seems to be a fine location to play any other game that's out there. Sorry, Xbox, but Sony isn't throwing you a bone anytime soon. The Switch 2, as a lower price addition to your current gaming portfolio, is an easy, affordable decision to make. Now, I will add a caveat here, though. Nintendo needs to make sure they give gamers a reason to jump into the new ecosystem. Now, they've always been known for having 1 or 2 cross-platform titles. More recently, we had Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and Switch, Twilight Princess on the GameCube and Wii, and so on and so on. Even Pokemon has historically stayed behind on the older, larger install-based systems for a release or two before jumping to the next console, and I'm expecting that here as well. We already know Pokemon Legends CA is slotted to be a Switch release, and Metroid Prime 4 has already been announced for the system as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see both of those as titles many play on the new system, but a large amount play on the original system. And it's kind of easy thanks to the backwards compatibility element at play as well, which, by the way, another huge incentive for people to pick up a Switch 2, for legacy Switch owners and new gamers entering into the Switch ecosystem alike. But my larger point here is this: don't do what Xbox and PlayStation has done with a lot of their first-party IPs. God of War Ragnarok, a PS5 title and a PS4 port. Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West, same thing. Having big IPs release new software on new hardware creates huge incentives for players to upgrade. But if Nintendo does a similar thing as the competitors with more than a few games after the launch of the Switch 2, that's going to be a challenging proposition they're placing their consumers in. Again, I fully expect to see Pokemon and maybe Metroid or Switch 1 games, but if they release the new Mario Kart in both systems, a new Mario game in general, Donkey Kong, Zelda, well, that's a strategy that will hurt them in the short to medium run, which at the end of the day, you want to avoid at all costs. Now, I'm optimistic this won't happen, of course, because I do believe the reason Sony and Xbox did this with their own titles is largely again due to the issue we've already been talking about. The development costs for their titles are so high, logically they need to maximize revenue as much as possible. So why not tap into your pre-existing install base? This is a practical solution, but I do believe it's leading AAA development down a path where they're not fully utilizing the stellar hardware at play at the moment. And with talks of a PS6 down the road in a few years, I'm here sitting with my PS5 going, where are the games? And I love it. But where are the games? Where are the games? So those are my points. To summarize, as AAA gaming becomes continuously more expensive and bloated and ultimately dilutes some of the purity in terms of console exclusives within the higher-end gaming console market, Nintendo's utilization of weather technology, innovative game design, and affordability create an always needed and perhaps now even more stable presence within the gaming market. This is even more important when it comes to developing markets in the gaming world as well, where high-end PCs and PS5 Pros aren't within those consumers' grasp, but affordable mobile gaming is. But let me know your thoughts. What are you most excited about for the Switch 2? Are you optimistic, pessimistic? Share your thoughts below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and as always, happy gaming.